Piastri's had a disaster. Oscar Piastri's last, the World Championship leader.
He jumped the starts, and that's
stopped.
what bogged him down. And now Piastri's in the wall. On the day McLaren could clinch the constructors, he's crashed at turn 5 and 6. What is going on lap 1 in Baku? The championship leader is out.
Damo, how are you? How'd you go? Did you cry?
Yes, I did. I don't want to get stuck on that first thing because I do have to get it out of my system. Well done, Max. He's Super Max. Red Bull are definitely back. But my goodness, now if we switch to the Aussies in us, what a painful weekend. Let's just say that. The quality stuff, the race stuff. Oh, and then when you think it's all going to be a disaster, someone doesn't do what he needs to do anyway. So it was like 6 points. So who cares, right?
Yeah, I still can. It was still pretty painful. If anyone saw my, I suppose, quick responses to those things on socials, I was pretty destroyed. Did like the content that came from it, though, with Oscar sitting there watching the race.
The photographer that followed him on his walk back, with the fashion.
Awesome shots. That was good.
Yeah, he did a good job. It was fantastic. But
let's not do that again.
I'm sort of like, honestly, the whole weekend for McLaren, it didn't ever look strong. I know they kept talking about it, and even the commentary was still talking about that. How it was just missed opportunity, but the car never looked like it was dominating in any way, shape, or form. And it looked like they were having to push it on the edge a lot more. The track definitely wasn't easy because people were, well, I mean, we can kick off with the quali. Like, how many red flags do you want in one session?
It wasn't just the quali. I mean, even in the lead up to it, there was a lot of crabbing going on, a lot of cars hitting walls. Plenty of mistakes to be had by just about everyone. And yeah, I mean, quali. I would say Oscar was in a good spot, but he's put his hand up and he said it was his own mistake. And good on you for doing that, Oscar, because I always think you blame yourself before you even consider if anything broke in the car. But man, it just looked like the car didn't even look like it was going to turn in. Like it just went straight.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was a PU problem in FP1 for Oscar, and then Lando made his car crab in FP2, FP3 they were back at the top, but yeah, it never felt particularly comfortable. I felt like they were driving scared because there was so much at play with so little to go that it's a big problem. Which then, when your head is in that space, then you tend to.
Yeah, it definitely had that feeling, didn't it? That there was no one was trying to command their position. Everybody was just be a bit too protective and safe, I think. And yeah, it definitely came to bite a few of them. I don't know. It was so disappointing when he missed the start and then also just had that off. It was just
Look, that's on me. I'm taking responsibility for Oscar's race. So here's the lead up to the race. I'm sitting there. I'm watching a show, Atypical on Netflix, and I'm going along in that. Really, it's a great show, by the way. If you want to go watch it, go watch it. It's quite funny. I can relate, which I'm not sure that's a good thing. And our brother-in-law can definitely. I reckon he'd definitely relate. But I was watching this show and then I realized with 3 minutes to go until the start of the race that the race was starting because it was earlier than every other race. I went, oh, crap. And I switched across. I grabbed the laptop. I didn't have any, because the other show was still going in the background. I didn't have any audio. I didn't have anything. And it was my fault. I wasn't organized enough, which meant that Oscar wasn't organized enough. He got the bad start. And then it just went from there. So I'm sorry, Oscar. I'm apologizing. It was clearly me.
Well, you can get stuff then if it's your fault. Because you couldn't have really made it any worse, other than perhaps him taking out his own teammate. It couldn't have been any worse for him this weekend. No, it would have been better for the championship, but it wouldn't have been better for his position in McLaren. I think that they would have even loved Lando and given him more preferential than they already do. So,
wow. I love. You know what was the best about that entire thing? If we cap that at the commentary team, oh, this is Lando's opportunity. This is this and nothing. By the end of the race, they're like, "Well, shit. What do we do now?"
I think I messaged you and I'm like, I can't take any more of them after this. This is, and then it just it went from he's got this, he's going to seize the moment, this is his chance, to kind of halfway through the race where they're like, he's really not making the headway. You know, Landon's good, he's got to be able to do it. Can he do it on the last lap? Like
nope.
They were just like praying for him to come through the field, but he just had nothing. Yeah.
And here's a statistic that will blow your mind. Blow your mind. Oscar made more overtakes in his half a lap than Lando made in the entire race.
Well done, Baku. Well done.
Yes. All right, let's not dwell on the McLaren. Yeah. We know we've talked about this before, that these things are going to happen. It's a bad one. We're going to put it behind us, and we go to Singapore, typically a Lando track, but I think Oscar will be strong there as well. So we'll see how that plays out. Supermax and the Red Bulls and the Mechie effect, Damien. Yeah. Definite change in that team. I feel like it's almost harmony in that team right now, which is kind of scary. And Max is now 2 on the trot. For those who don't understand trot, I don't mean the trots. I mean 2 wins in a row. How do we think this is a theme? This is going to continue, or do we think this is track dependent, skinny wing, works well for the Red Bull?
I definitely think that there's an element of that, but there does feel, as you say, there is like this kind of synergy that's happening. Everything seems to be going better. I mean, Laurent has somehow magically managed to get that second car performing. I mean, this is a great result for Yuki.
Yeah. Still beaten by Lawson.
And still beaten by Lawson, which was great. But like Max is just he's finding the way to get it done, and like I think it's kind of good and bad the outcomes of the weekend, because yes, Oscar had a shocker and Lando couldn't capitalize, but like Lando is now going to have to look a little bit in the rear to see what Max is doing, as well as keeping an eye on trying to get ahead of Oscar. And so I think it's genuine opportunity for Max to have, like, he has to win every single race. I think it's Lando second, Oscar third for him to get the championship, right? That's how it has to play out. So very unlikely, but that second position against Lando, that could be just another bit of spice that we need for this year's Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, it's got people up and about. I mean, it's changed because it's gone from the McLarens are just dominating and it's just 2 wins out of the McLarens to suddenly it's like, shit, here comes Max. You can never discount Max. I mean, I think we said it earlier on in the year when everyone was saying, "Oh no, he's out of it. He's out of it." We're like, "Yeah, no, it's not over until it's over." We've played this game. Oh, sorry, bit of cat fur. We've watched this go for however long now, and you just know that things can swing real quick in F1. And it takes one small change to the cars, and suddenly they're in a window and they're working. And that's what I think we're starting to see with the Red Bull.
Yeah. And if you think about the tracks that we've got until the end of the year, Las Vegas should be a Red Bull track, right? So that's the max.
Mexico.
Brazil, Mexico, definitely two that should be like he'll be strong at. Maybe he won't win, but two that he'll definitely be strong at. And then it's still max. So at Singapore, he's going to be a possible contender. I think maybe that might be the one that will peg him back a little bit. But you've got Coda, you've got Qatar, you've got Abu Dhabi. And really, so three of what's left, he should be very strong at. And, probably another two of those, he's got a very good chance if the car has advanced the way we think it has.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Okay, yeah, no, I agree with all that. So, yes. For anyone who's just tuned in, because that'll all get cut out, my headphones started beeping at me.
So if it looks a little funny, that's why. Well, maybe looking a little funny is a great segue by me to start talking about a lucky unicorn.
Mate, I have listen, just before we even go into that, have a listen at this. Let's
okay.
Let's get this up.
Got some audio?
We got some audio.
Unicorn. Sparkles or sprinkles? Oh. Can you wear a unicorn?
Sparkles or sprinkles?
Yeah. And can you wear a unicorn sticker on your helmet for the rest of the year? Lucky.
Hey, crazy cute. I will wear
sparkles or sprinkles.
You design your unicorn sparkles or sprinkles thing, sprinkles. And you send it to the team. I promise I will wear a unicorn sticker in my helmet.
Right, so that's Carlos Sainz and a small fan, a young fan, who had a unicorn, a stuffed animal unicorn. They made a sticker, they put it on the back of the helmet, and you got to say that this is the luckiest unicorn he has ever stuck on his helmet, because that performance was excellent. But here's the kicker. Here's the little girl responding to how Carlos was going. Hang on, let me get this up. Powered by unicorns, indeed.
Oh man, right up in the feels. What a story!
Unbelievable. Guys had no luck at all. Has this one fan who says, stick my unicorn on your helmet. He does, and podium.
He nabbed a podium. Like from last round, where people were sitting there basically going, Carlos, what's going on? Has he still got he was falling apart apparently, the old forgotten how to drive, and the old unicorn sticker on the back of the helmet, and has brought him all the luck, and he's managed to get a podium. So,
mate,
he
was
good.
So fast, there was a rainbow coming out the back of that Williams. No, it was so good to see though. Like just on that, like Carlos, congratulations, mate.
Yes.
I love seeing you up there. You made me sing on social media, which is scary for a lot of people.
I agree. Someone mentioned don't do that again, and I think Lee, I agree. So
it was Al Oppie.
Oh,
like,
that's Oppie. Sorry,
no.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, mate. This is going to happen anytime Carlos gets a podium. I can't guarantee I'm not going to sing. Get ready to bleed.
But smooth operator indeed.
Absolutely. And that run up that he had, I didn't like the prop at the end. I wish he'd just full on committed to the team of him running at the team. He sort of propped right at the end and then jumped into them. I was like, nah.
Come on. Full send.
Commit.
But honestly, his drive was sensational. Williams, the strategy was exactly what he needed. Everything just fell into alignment for him. And really did drive a perfect race. Despite I guess some of the other cars perhaps around him sort of struggling with a bit of a roadblock or whatever. But they just seized the moment, and it's so good to see them on the podium again.
Yeah, it means a lot for the team, right? Like I can't remember how long it had been, but it's been a long time since they've had a podium.
Well, do you know their last podium?
No, I don't. Not off the top of my head.
grab your tennis racket. It was Lance Stroll. It was Lance Stroll. Was the last time Williams got a podium. Yep. Your mate.
What special set of circumstances made that happen?
It was a bit of a chaotic race, but they still got a podium. So
fair enough.
Yep. So that was the last time. Yeah.
Jeez, that's wow.
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 Wow. Yeah, I that's blown my mind. I would not have said that. I would have thought the last time Stroll was even competitive was when they had that pink Mercedes all those years ago. So
couldn't even capitalize then. Even Sergio had to do that. So
yep, not wrong. Yes. So no, from unicorns and Williams, good fortune to the misfortune of McLaren.
Yeah.
How do you think this did glitch or potential problem for Piastri moving forward?
Look, I just think it's an uncharacteristic weekend for him. I think it is something that he should correct, and I guess the moments in the next couple of Grand Prix will be key for him to kind of reset back to his normal self, I would say. He never looked like he was driving his usual Oscar Piastri style. And I don't know, I'm hoping there's nothing in terms of the car setup and some of the struggles. It took him a while to get into the weekend. And, it's a big concern that yet again, I know it was on Lando's car, but the pit stop again, I don't want these pit stops impacting Oscar in particular, but it's starting to impact outcomes for them because they can't get things right. So as a team, they've got to come together and get that stuff sorted out, the strategy right, pit stops better, and then help the drivers and then switch those drivers on for some reason. They were both a bit AWOL.
Yeah, I mean, my theory about this whole not papaya rules, but trying to be friendly and everything else, and after you, sir, and that's not the McLaren way, and all this sort of stuff. I think it's actually causing more problems now as we get towards the back end of this season than they need. I'm not saying that they need to back Piastri completely, but I think it needs to be very set in stone, a very clear indication from the team that, if, for instance, you get to the first corner or whatever, I mean, I want to see them race. I really do. But at the same time, it's like, fuck, you guys are causing drama with this a little bit. I don't know. There just seems to be this extra added pressure from this building. And at some point, it's got to explode. It kind of feels like it did explode on the weekend. Just nobody capitalized on either side.
Yeah. I think one thing I was always a bit worried about, like now you think Max is advancing, is if they don't clinch the World Constructors at Singapore, it's going to be a problem, because at what point do they then start saying, oh, Oscar, we need to get Lando ahead of you so he can stay ahead of Max, at what point is some of those games going to start, which I really just hope that they can clinch the World Championship for the Constructors, and then that side of it can be pushed aside and they can just let them race. They'll still play that fairness thing, but I just don't want another set of variables to come in where, it could really, muddy the waters. And, I guess the other point is, what if that swap that they did, plays out towards the end of the season, which we've kind of spoken on, but when Oscar has a DNF, it's like suddenly it's like, oh shit,
that's a big swing. Okay.
That's it could end up being those points may actually be crucial. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it, but I'm not getting confidence from them at the moment.
Yeah, it's hard to have confidence. I mean, you're not in we're not in the inner sanctum. We don't know.
Yeah.
You know, everything we are saying is literally just opinion based on what we're seeing,
Yep.
and what the team seems to be saying, which has gone from being really like strong and confident to being a bit. It's not playing out how they thought. I think it'll be very interesting to see how it all unfolds. They're not going to change the way they run now. I just don't see it happening. Somebody or a lot of people are asking, just prioritize, Piastri and get both championships, blah, 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 blah. But they're not going to do that. They're just not going to. They didn't do it with Norris last year when he had a big advantage over Piastri. They're not going to do it when they're relatively close. So, and it's also not fair on Norris, right? Like, I mean, ultimately he should get a fair run at it as well.
Yep.
Nothing. I know we bag out British media and everything else, but nothing against Norris. He's got a right to try and get this championship just as much as Oscar does.
That's if he really wants it.
That's right. I mean, like, let's get to that. So let's get to Norris being starting 7th and finishing 7th. Yes, the botch pit stop, but inability to overtake
was a problem.
Go back 12 months. Go back 12 months, and Oscar makes a move that is unworldly to take the win. That's the difference between the two drivers, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's playing out more and more, so I'd agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So, Ferrari.
Looked
strong, started well, got to qualifying.
Hello? Speed? Hello? Where did they drop it off in the back part of the circle or something? What happened?
I don't know.
What happened? They just didn't look... Oh.
They lost the speed. Lewis obviously went out in Q2, and then Leclerc fenced it in Q3 like Oscar.
That was the worst part, because like the reason Lewis went out was because he had the yellow flag from Leclerc. So it's like he didn't quite get the lap in that he wanted. And then the next one round, Leclerc goes, it just puts it in the wall. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Cluster.
And they're falling apart because obviously Mercedes had a strong weekend, and so that championship is now looking
quite tight.
And so I'm not sure what's happening with them.
Yeah, Antonelli had a nice form return, I would say. Still not as strong as George, considering George was crook as a dog all weekend. Poor bastard.
Like, didn't hear that.
Jesus, I actually feel for him. That sounded absolutely horrible. So poor bastard. I hope you're feeling better now, George. But obviously Antonelli and him, took advantage of all the craziness, and George secured second, and Antonelli I think was fourth in the end. So not a bad showing for the young rookie. Good return to form after being scathed at Monza.
Yes. Because he needed a good result, and he definitely turned up this weekend. Pretty much all weekend was producing at least results that you'd want from him.
Yep.
Almost got pipped by another rookie in Liam. So that was good to see a little. At least it was sort of pit stop strategy stuff, but it was good to see them both up there.
It was, and the one thing I'll say about Liam, and I didn't have it in the run sheet, but a great weekend for Liam. Yep. On top of, he beats Hadjar. Hadjar doesn't quite get it together in quali, but then Hadjar in the race actually falls back while Liam maintains, which is not something we've typically seen throughout the season. And I really commend Lawson's drive last weekend, because it's not easy to keep that car in that top 5 area. And he did that, and he kept Yuki behind him, as much as Yuki would have been so annoyed by that.
That must have been so tough knowing that car. Yuki would be like, man, I would have had a podium if I'd stayed in that car. But absolutely, like pretty much a flawless weekend. He didn't have the pace to sort of maintain from where he started, but like did everything that he should have. Pit stops were great, strategy was great. He and Racing Bulls did a great job to really nail that fifth.
Yeah, I agree. So well done,
Well done, well done.
Giving him a clap.
Cheer, bro, cheer.
Have a chop.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, really good job. Really happy for Liam. Really happy for Yuki.
Yes, it was great for him.
Yeah, top 6, did well, drove well, held off Lando
for many laps.
For many laps, and that was good to see. I was just, back to the Ferrari thing. I was a bit disappointed with their strategy call for Leclerc. They pulled him in early to try and get the undercut, and the overcut worked. I feel like where Baku track position, kind of like Monaco and stuff, is really important. They should have just held out and seen how far they could have pushed it. But you make a choice, you live and die by the decision you make, and they lost a few positions as a result.
They did. So, what was your makeup of? There was apparently a change of position that was meant to happen on that last lap.
Lewis tried.
Didn't happen, or I don't know. Like it was a bit odd, wasn't it?
Lewis went from 360 something kilometers an hour down to 160, right near the line, and then apparently Leclerc also let off the throttle right before he got to his teammate. So he obviously went didn't care.
I didn't read or hear anything, but why were they making that adjustment?
I think because Leclerc got out of Hamilton's way early on when it was showing that Hamilton had more pace to possibly get to the back of the others. So they allowed Hamilton through to go and chase. And
then they were going to reverse it for that.
Yeah,
okay, I missed it.
But Leclerc, I don't think was really phased. I've seen a couple of snippets that have taken, I think, out of context of what he was saying. But Charles didn't actually seem that phased by the fact he's like, it's eighth and night. Who gives a shit? It doesn't make any difference to him. So he wasn't really worried about it. Did you see also, just before we swap gears here away from Formula One, but did you see the drive home for Leclerc and Carlos?
Yeah, they had some problem at the airport, so I had to land a couple of hours away, and they hired a van of all things to.
Couldn't fly into Nice, apparently. Had to fly in somewhere else, and they hired a van. And I loved it because every time Charles would pan back to the road, you'd see a racing line being taken by freaking Carlos. Out of control. But
I know. Not every day that you get that kind of a chauffeur either, so that was pretty good.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Very good. All right, mate. Well, let's switch gears. Hey. Let's go across to the supercars. Because there's a little bit happening over there this week, mate. We've had a few things going on.
It is. It's like it's coming up to Bathurst, so there's this. Everybody's starting to do some shuffling, and I guess the first thing is we must congratulate Supercars for listening to our pod and taking our great advice to. Hot off the press, just dropped in. They're going to revert back to the original first safety car procedure. So no 80 Ks an hour at this stage, like lockdown. No funkies stopping in the lines and having wink up, ram you in the ass. It's just going to go back to, we are going to police the double waved yellows like they should. And everybody's going to be happy, I think. So the final details are still going to go through as of us filming this, but by the time the pod comes out, I think they would have had the commissioners meeting, and that should all be finalised and ratified. So good job, Supercars, Motorsport Australia, listening to us.
Yeah, well done. Thank you. We will take it in a check. 100,000, make it out for the valve bounce. No.
Beautiful.
No. Look, great that they're actually listening. I think they had to do something after what occurred at the bend. I don't think you could go into Bathurst really running that same kind of procedure. They've made the change, which is good on them. The only thing is, as you said, so the thing to work out is how slow they have to be going through these sections where there's double waved yellows. So that's still to be determined. And also the penalty that a car will get if they're in breach of that. So they are the things they're going to discuss and what we should know probably by the time this goes out, like always.
Beautifully timed.
Yes.
But there is some silly season stuff we need to get because it all started happening. We've had whispers. We've had Steve going crazy for some reason.
Silly season.
Okay. It's like, Ken Bruce has gone mad. That's you.
Ken
right?
Bruce has gone mad. Ken Bruce has gone mad.
But yeah, they finally, some announcement happened, and it was, as always with the silly season, whispers were there. The first domino falls, and it's just like pop, pop, pop. They're all popping up. So yeah, announcements were made that some drivers were departing, and then an hour or two later, announcements were made where drivers were going. So it was all kind of happening. But the first one, Cam Hill, is going to Brad Jones Racing, and Forward is at the moment out of that seat.
Yes. So Forward has been announced as moving on from BJR. It doesn't quite look like there's a seat available for him at this stage. But that's pretty hard. Congrats to Cam Hill. I think moving on to BJR when they're going into the Toyota era is probably a good move for him. But you just don't know how this is going to pan out, do you? I mean, MSR have been so good, but just not quite there. BJR, they're mixed results as well. So I feel like it's a sideways step, but then you add the Toyota factor in and suddenly you go, what is it? Is it like this master stroke whereby, those cars will probably have, they won't have a leg up, but they'll be competitive, and we know that BJ loves to work well with change. Like usually when he swaps a manufacturer or swaps, rules like change or anything like that, he tends to come to the forefront. So
yes.
I guess we just watch this space, hey? But good move, Cam Hill. Well done.
Yeah, it should be good. It's definitely, if nothing else, it's going to be pretty exciting moving to Toyota as a manufacturer. So, that's good.
And the other one, mate, was Golding. Golding has announced that he's leaving Premier Racing to go to, they haven't announced yet, but it is likely and rumored heavily that he'll be going to Blanchard Racing Team to replace the retiring James Courtney. And there's a little whisper that Aaron Cameron might not be there, but he might still be there. They're still trying to decide by the sound of it.
Yeah, you sort of get the feeling that maybe they needed James Courtney's services. They should have thrown in a house to try and keep him because they were apparently trying to do a lot. There is also that kind of not confirmation, but the whisper that Snowy River Caravans will also leave with Courtney. So they'll be on the hunt for a new sponsor. But I'm not sure whether Golding's is he the one that you really pick? Was he the last choice spun the wheel and he was the last one they could get? Or I don't know. Well, I'm not sure he's going to be the right fit for them.
Well, look, it's not announced yet. I mean, it's a strong rumor though. I wonder if BRT play the long game and just wait and see what happens at Shell. Yeah, just wait, because I don't know. There seems to be a little bit of a smoky of that Todd Hazelwood could pick up that second seat at the Shell team.
Yep.
Sorry, excuse me. I'm not sure whether that will play out or not. I think that it's a hard thing to determine just now, but I would play almost to say that I would get Will Davo in that car to help out Aaron Cameron more than I would Golding. Golding is a quick driver, but he doesn't really have any runs on the board to say that he can lead a team or, bring them up the field. So I don't know.
Yeah. And maybe that's the proviso of if they are either hoping to keep James, then they keep Aaron, or if they bring in Golding, do they look to change that seat because, he's not going to have that guidance. And it looks like there's still a little bit of shuffling on the decks for that one to pan out.
Yeah. Okay, so that's enough of the silly season. But God, that's horrible.
Yes,
but on Will Davo, because that's a good segue.
Oh yeah,
is a car has been pulled out of a museum and been switched so that he can change the chassis for the Bathurst 1000, because this new chassis that was the Erebus chassis has not worked out for him for some reason.
It's really weird that he's not having that success and then moving up as the car is getting better, because obviously the car's getting better. Brody's advancing and he still can't either get any luck, but also just can't find any speed out of that car. And then for them to go back to the old chassis, like it feels like quite a desperate move when you're going into Bathurst.
It feels like a last roll of the dice.
Yeah.
To me. Like it's like, shit, help, change chassis. I don't like this one. And then if it still falls apart, well, then he departs type thing. It just, I don't know. It's a weird move. I mean, that car it just turned up at Bathurst at the racing museum like a week beforehand, maybe. And literally they've pulled it back out, taken it back to Queensland, and the other car's been taken down to the museum so that the museum still has a car.
Crazy stuff.
It is crazy stuff. But no, it's going to be interesting. I'm starting to get excited about Bathurst again, Damien.
Oh, are you?
A little bit. I don't know. Just maybe it's wishful thinking. I think, it slowly sets in. You get a little bit of hope and you're just like, oh, maybe we can do it. Maybe we can. But maybe we can't. I don't know. We'll see when we get there.
We're not going to know really until we get through some of those long runs, deeper in the practice sessions to be able to understand whether the pace is there. But while we're on chassis, also BRT did mention that they're going to move chassis to 888 next year, and that is going to be a move. Obviously, Walkinshaw going to Toyota, so they were getting, I guess, some data and stuff through Walkinshaw. But the chassis move they've obviously secured directly through 888. So that's a big move, which is I must admit, when I first saw the announcement, I was like, what? They're going to hang on, dickhead. They're moving to Ford. They're moving to Ford. Okay. Blanchard staying with the Mustang, no going to Camaros. I just had this moment of brain fade. I was like, they're going to 888 or chassis.
No.
What? But that hopefully, and maybe a bit of a deal to get some data and stuff that hopefully that can work for them. So there you go.
I mean, we've seen in previous, applications, Premiere is one where just by getting the data and getting the equipment doesn't necessarily mean that it comes to fruition for you. But definitely in the case of the Blanchard team, I think this is a good thing. They really, when they did this deal with Walkinshaw earlier in this year, when they had that really bad round at New Zealand, they were like 5 tenths off the back of the field. That was when they did the deal with Walkinshaw. And since that point, Courtney's had some good results.
Moving up.
Cameron's been moving up. Like it is a good thing. And I think, this should hopefully keep that trajectory just moving a little bit further forward. They're never going, I won't say never, but it's unlikely that they're going to be a front-running team, not in the short-term future anyway. But look, I think this is a good thing for them. And, 888 will love that because, they get a little bit of cash in the bank, which is
They
what
do.
they did so well at Chev.
Yep.
And keeping on that, mate, there's a little rumor with Premier not being happy with Chev. They haven't committed to them for next year. Do we think, because they're not going to go to Toyota, do we think they could switch to Ford and keep that relationship with T8?
Well, I guess it's always possible. And just one that sort of popped out a little bit recently that, since they haven't locked in, that, perhaps Pete Zibris has decided, well, you don't give me the homologation gig, maybe I'll just take my business to the
Elsewhere.
Ford side. So it could end up happening, and it wouldn't be a surprise, but boy, the numbers will get stacked a little, won't they? And there'll be some Holden / Chev people out there that will be angry people.
What does that leave? Erebus, MSR, and Team 18.
Team 18, yeah.
So that's 6 Camaros if Premier jump across. And then you've got 6 Toyotas. So that makes up the 12. What do we got on the grid? 24?
24, yeah.
So we've got 12 Fords. This could be the first time in Supercars history where the Fords would outweigh every other manufacturer ever. This has never, ever happened. And not only that, you would argue that they have the best teams.
I can't believe you just said that, you fanboy.
What? It's true. I mean, look, fundamentally, when you look at them at the moment, when you think about each and every team, the strength on the Chev side is only Triple Eight at the moment. Like Team 18 is getting there because they're obviously getting the little fairy dust that Jeremy Moore's sprinkling on them. And I'm sure they'll be strong next year. But they're not the strongest, right? And Erebus is heavily fluctuating. And the others are kind of like, well, they're there or thereabouts, but they're not.
Yeah, well, MSR's good at certain tracks, but not all of them.
Not all of them.
And so, it really does. It'll leave a big hole. Just having those extra numbers on their side, I think. Yeah. So watch this space. I'll be looking forward to seeing that one. That's for sure.
I might watch every single race next year.
You'll be a Triple Eight and a Premier fan. Imagine that.
Well, I will not be. Thank you, Damo. How dare you tarnish me with that brush?
Fanboy.
Right. So in speaking of rounds and how many there will be, there's been a little bit of news that Supercars are finding it difficult to come up with the cash to do the increase like expected, and that there's a potential that there's only the 12 rounds again. Get it together, Supercars. Find a way is my thought on that.
Yeah. I think they really need to. But it does come down to, someone said it last week about, I think it might have been Pete Adderton, who was like, the teams have too much control. This is the problem. But it's a hard one for Supercars, because if the teams don't agree to it and they say, we want this amount of money to run that, Supercars just have to find the money somewhere. And they really will need to get their sponsorship butts into gear and try and find some big sponsors to kind of self-manage those particular events and get that cash straight into the team's pockets. I think the teams need to do a little bit to help make this happen. Work with their sponsors, but geez, I can't believe we're about to hit Bathurst and we're not going to be close to finding out the amount of rounds, because they've committed to 2 in New Zealand, and so that's there's 10 then that are left here. If we stay the same, they just need to find a couple more. So
like I really think, and I've said it before, it's time to have a rethink on how long weekends are, how they are structured, how they play out. We want to get crowds, right? We want to get eyeballs. We don't need to have, at the moment, I feel like you've got this massive spread over a really long period of time. It's no good for anyone because people can't commit to it. I am thinking they need to squeeze this down as much as they physically can, condense it, get it in, get it done. Teams are only there for 3 days, cost effectiveness because they're not there for an entire fucking week. They really need to have a think about how they've structured this. I am heavy on the NASCAR front, I know, and I talk about it a lot, saying that they've got a lot right. Yeah, no, they have got a lot right, especially with the amount of days that they're actually trackside. I think it's key for personnel and everything else. So, I just think they need to really have a heavy think about what they're doing and how they're doing it, and see where they can cut costs, but also increase rounds, right? Because
well, think about this. Oh, sorry, go.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, I was just going to say, think about this. An easy one, which is good for all teams because it's not huge travel time. Even the Queensland teams will still have to come down, but it's still only like 2 days max. Winton, they roll up on a Friday. Saturday is just like punch it out and have sprint rounds, obviously. So have a day where it's just like it's a practice, quali, race. And then Sunday, practice, quali, race. Have it done by kind of 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then just bang, we're done. Everyone can go home. Teams can do testing if they're going to hang around, whatever they need to do. But just like that's an easy one that you can fit into a smaller space. That there'll be some funding from local government there, I think they have done in the past. But people will attend that one. People will go up to Winton from Melbourne. And the other part is like, we're always hamstrung by that opening round because bloody Sydney Motorsport Park would be a perfect one. Do your night races. Started at 12, right? So everyone gets in there, even if you want to get them there on the Friday, but they can get there a bit later, Friday evening. Yep. You don't run till 12 that next day and then just bang out that sprint format. Just have the practice, quali, race. Do the same on for a day race. So have one night race, one day race, and then you get everyone out and easy because it's in the middle of all the teams. So travel-wise, that would be 2 perfect rounds that you could squeeze in that it should be able to make manageable. But because Sydney's always got to be in that fucking opening round, it's until destroyed one more year, Yeah, so it's just like, I don't know what else, like, what other circuits can they do unless they throw in, we go back to Barbagallo, right? We have a Perth street track, which we're not even sure that's going to happen, but go to Barbagallo and do 2 back-to-back there. Like, how else can we squeeze another circuit in that's going to work for everyone?
Yeah, look, I mean, that's the hard part, right? Like, we do have to travel quite a distance to get to different tracks in Australia. I mean, the States, they still have to travel quite a bit, but they seem to be able to get around a little bit easier for whatever reason. But I still think, like, especially the sprint stuff, they shouldn't be there from a Wednesday or a Tuesday. They should be rolling in on a Friday. As you said, practice, quali, race, practice, quali, race, and then gone, right? They shouldn't be hanging around for useless shit and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's just get in, get it done, and then get out. And, that way, you're not paying for an extra 2 or 3 days of personnel.
Yep.
All that sort of stuff. Like, it will actually then be cheaper to run and maintain. So then you can have that extra round or 2 without the team saying, hey, I need an extra $63,000 per round because of all the people that I have to pay.
For accommodation and food.
For everything, because it's covering everything. So, bringing it, condensing it down essentially 3 days, but 2 days of running, I just think it's the best way forward, especially through the sprint stuff. Right, Bathurst is different. The Bend 500 is different. If Gold Coast becomes a enduro, again, different, right? But when it's the sprint stuff and then the finals, other than Adelaide, right? I think that's the way forward.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think that's still a bit of time before they'll get to that. They'll figure that shit out, unfortunately. But
I know,
yeah,
right?
all good. All good. Well, mate, there is something else that we wanted to touch on. And
Was it?
yeah, it was this documentary that Erebus conducted or produced themselves. And I said to our community, I said that I'd watch it and I'd go through and sort of suffer through it. Well, I assumed I was going to suffer through it. And then you said to me, no, let me watch it too. But like, I must admit, after the first episode, it was great reminiscing about all the cool stuff that I used to love about Erebus. It was such a good summary of everything that was going on behind the scenes. It was great to see. Obviously, it is a bit one-sided, but it was great to kind of have that, I guess, that history of like, oh, that's why I used to love them as the underdog team. That's why I used to, support them so much.
Yeah.
And then that middle. Actually, I'll let you finish on what your thoughts on what you thought of the first kind of episode they had.
I love the first episode. I love seeing the behind the scenes of the Mercs. What was involved. How they how quick that project had to come together. I thought that was an incredible feat. Like, for a team to be able to do that and to make it all work, the liaising between AMG in Germany and everything else, and turning up with an engine that, obviously had to get rectified and changed. Like, the fact that they were going to run the 6.2 litre and then Supercars squashed it and they had to go back and say, this has to change. Like, there was so many things that you just sat there going, wow, that was a headache, right? Like, and you can easily see how Betty well and truly overspent. That graph they put up of like Supercars spend versus Betty's $55 million that she piled into the AMG project was insane. And there's a lot of things, as I said, there's a lot of things that they developed in that period with the AMG that when they did make that eventual switch to the Holden, they could bolt that on and suddenly they were just competitive.
Yeah. Yep. That was very cool. Then we kind of hit that second episode, and I sort of feel like there was a bit missing in that whole thing. We didn't really touch on a lot of the things that I was hoping that maybe we get some insights to. But like, not once did they really kind of enter into a deep conversation about the them against Penske, that sort of thing that happened. They never really touched on, and it sort of drove into that third episode as well. But they never really touched on really deep on the situation that kind of uncovered a couple of years ago with Brody, etc. And it was very light on in that regard. And as I progressed through the episodes, I was like, oh yeah, that's why I really loved. That was so cool. That was awesome. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, yeah. And then like by the third episode, I was just getting angry, and I was just like, what the fuck is, like, how do you create a piece like this and not really touch on a lot of the key things that were happening for you as an organization, as a team, internally? That's the whole purpose. I know it was a puff piece, but get some meat on the bone.
I wasn't quite as angry as you. I was expecting to get angry because you said to me before I'd watched it, you're like, brace yourself because I'm pissed, and I'm like, oh God, I'm going to really get annoyed. But I think probably because I went in with the expectation that I was going to get pissed
Yeah.
off, it didn't actually piss me off that much. Yeah, it's a puff piece, right? What I kept reminding myself was this is Betty's flowers and rainbows, right? This is her baby. And the fundamental thing of Erebus, I love. Like where it came from, how it progressed, everything about it. I absolutely love it, right? And I actually really like Betty.
Yeah.
It's the other knob that does my head in. And I know kudos to him, Barry Ryan, for getting that team to stop spending so much money and become competitive and to race not just on the back of Betty's wealth. It's fully sustainable, honestly. So all those things I think that he did are to be commended.
Correct.
But you can't take away from all the other shit that unfolded from him. And what I didn't like that they didn't touch on with the Brody saga is that Barry basically went, well, I don't know why he didn't like me. I just knew that I was part of the problem.
Yeah, that was the part that sent me over the edge. That I was kind of hanging on and I was just in your phase. But I was going to bring that up next. So that was my trigger. Like, I was just like, at least Betty, when she said it, she talked about the fact that there was like this decision between, well, me or him type thing. And she was never going to say no. At least she was honest on that front when that segment came up. But I mean, come on, Barry, you have to understand the dynamics, and it wouldn't have been that hard to say, I am, like, he does say it externally, but like he is who he is, and he's got that from where he came up, through the Larry Perkins world, which very much a Larry trait where it was just hard as nuts and just this is the way it's going to be. And that was part of his success to getting Erebus to being, self-funded. But there's a point where you've got to be able to say that clearly I didn't approach it in the right way, or I could have done it better. Like just something along those lines of, it's the way I've always done it and it just wasn't working. Even that line would have been, I would have gone, okay. But when he went, I don't know. It's like, man, fucking, you know more than all of us, so you must know, because the snippets we get, we can piece it all together. So,
and it's not like when you listen to the Lucky Dogs podcast, right?
Yeah.
And you listen to both Brody and Will talking about the fact that the environment and the direction became apparent enough to them that it wasn't a place that they wanted to be.
Yep.
And they wanted to get out, even though they were in a championship winning position and a championship winning car. That says
crazy.
Everything you need to know about what is happening within that team at that time. And you can't cover that up. Like that's just fundamentally where the problem lay, right? Whether that's just Barry, whether that's a group, I don't know. We don't. All we know from us outside of the sport is that Barry seems to be at the center of this whole thing.
Yep.
And then the facts even keep rolling in, because you only have to look back to Sydney Motorsport Park earlier this year when Barry single-handedly grabbed AVL to bring him into the group and blame him.
Yeah, bullying him
for everything. Actually, it might have been last year. Blame him for everything that had happened at Erebus because he put out a piece that told the truth. That's wrong. So for all the good that Barry has done, he's done a lot of bad too. Is it neutralized? I'm not sure. At the moment, I weigh on it's not.
No.
But there are still plenty of people that work at Erebus that seem to swear, if you go by this documentary, Black and Blue, that Barry is the second coming.
Yeah. And you can kind of get that because you guess that like that's the style of person that he is, that I bet he does, like when you're in the, you know, that circle of trust, or when you're inside that, a it's probably a great place. Like, yeah, he might have some escalations here and there, but you know, he's doing what he can for the team, and I think that part of it is definitely a positive. But it just feels like as soon as there is any challenge, or you know, you're pushed outside of his little circle, that it becomes this really toxic environment that people don't want to be there. And, you know, I think there's whispers of LeBrock, right?
Mm.
And so, like, he's a Barry, what's the word? Like, he was a junior developed by Barry. Like, he's had a lot of history with Barry. So he was really looking forward to it. And then even he, and we don't know if it's because of that reason, but even he's whispered to be leaving. And so it's like, well, like why is that happening?
Yeah, the revolving door, right? Like we say it all the time. It doesn't matter what business, what company. If your employees are constantly rotating, that means there's an issue, right?
Yep.
Because people don't move on or get moved on if they're invested and love whatever they're doing and
Yep.
getting treated well. So,
Yeah.
there's definitely some internalizing that they need to do. There's no questioning that when that team gets going and works in harmony and everything else, that it's an incredible team. Never
Yep.
taking it away from Betty, what she's achieved. It is fantastic. I love it. I hate that you're almost not made to feel this way, but you do feel this way for the way, just because of these things that keep popping up. And I think you get that frustration because you want to like the team.
Yep. I think that's right, especially because we did love it. We loved the Merc.
I still love the Merc.
It's still one of the best sounding.
Oh,
yeah, but it's just that, I guess that's why I knew it was going into it. I knew it was going to be a puff piece, but I was really hoping for a little bit, I'll say honesty, but a bit more openness is probably what I really mean. And it just wasn't really there. And so then as soon as that happened, I was like, come on. At least I prepared you, and you could actually, you know, absorb it in the right manner, and not be so unhappy like I was.
Yeah, thanks for that, mate. I appreciate it. I do. The interesting part of that, like if you take all that doco, the real interesting part was the part where they were switching manufacturer, right? Because there was obviously discussion with Volvo at some point for them to take that over. And that would have been fascinating. Because I like, no offense to GRM, but if that Volvo was in anyone else's hands, them and McLaughlin would have dominated.
Yeah.
That's how good that car was. And I miss that Volvo. I wish it was still in the series. One, it sounded fucking cool, and two, it looked fucking cool. And, you know, obviously it was piloted by Scotty Mack, and we love that. So, yeah. What could have done? You know, what we could have seen.
Could have been, huh?
Could have been.
What ifs?
I know. A lot of those.
Let's wrap this up. We've been going for an hour or so. General news that's kind of getting out there, and I guess the first one that I'd like to do is there is a rematch. There is a rematch.
Got him by 8 inches. What?
The tights maybe will come out. We'll see the bowls, but Matt Shervington has decided to get a bit of a rematch against David Reynolds, who I think really missed the start because he knew it was going to beat him, and so I think he kind of delayed the start and that famous 8-inch line. But at Bathurst, so it's kind of come out of the blue, and rematch is happening. So I'll let you tune in, and you can update us on how that goes in a couple of weeks, mate.
I won't be watching. I think we'll either get my wife or one female that I know at least that can watch the race and report back. And if they come back to me with anything other than what the race result is, I will disqualify them.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, it's funny because I don't know if anyone has seen the interview between Davo and Matt, but he literally said to Matt, he's like, "Yeah, I reckon we should do a rematch." But he goes, "This time, I think you need to be in your full skins, like really making sure that everything gets accentuated." And Matt's like, "Oh yeah, all right, I'll do that." So
yeah, he doesn't care, mate. Why would he with that?
No, that's it, exactly. If you got it, flaunt it, right? So yeah, good on him, bastard.
Yes.
Moving on from 8 inches and focusing back on motorsports. We've had a bit of an announcement, mate, that Adelaide Motorsport Festival have locked in Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard, the stars of McLaren in the late 90s. They're coming down. And for Mika, this is a return to, a spot that he didn't have he didn't leave great terms because he had a massive incident in 1995 where he launched up a curb and impaled a fence, basically. He was in hospital for a really long sustained period of time. And, he was looked after really well, which he has fond memories of, but he hasn't been back here since he came back to thank all the medical staff that looked after him. So that's a return of like almost probably 30 odd years. And I think that'll be pretty special to see a 2-time world champ and Coulthard back running around on the streets of Adelaide.
Yeah, it's a great coup, and that festival's like early next year, and so just over that anniversary is the word I'm looking for, where I think it's this year is the anniversary of 30 years and 40 years of since we've had the race and 40 years since the start. So it'll be great to have them back, and it's almost at the point where I'm like, that festival was like it's really good last year, and it's like, right,
do I need to get across there? I'd probably need to get across there. It's getting to that stage of like, shit, I need to get over there.
And with these two there, I'm sure there might be some nice little surprises of them running some cars around. So that would be good to see.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, I'm definitely. I need to look at the dates for this thing, but if I can
February 28th and March 1st, so that weekend.
If I can line it up, I'm fucking going.
There you go. You heard it. He's booked in, locked in.
Without the wife's permission. Yep. Totally locked in.
And if I have to run the valve bounce on my own, you know what happened to Steve.
Well, that'd be pretty cool if we're over there just on the ground reporting that. I think that'd be pretty cool. So, all right. Well, I guess that probably wraps us up. I mean, we've got a couple of things next, mate. Obviously, we head to Singapore, not this weekend, but the following. That'll be a cracker and a corker and hot and sweaty. It's actually news on the ground. Almost ready to go. I've got a mate over there right at this very moment. He's been sending photos. It's almost ready to go. I told him to hire a car and run the course, but he said, no, they've blocked off sections. So he can't do that. So we got Singapore, and then literally the week after, I'm pretty sure from that is the Bathurst 1000. So
Bathurst 1000. So big weeks ahead.
Got a couple of big weeks ahead, so we probably need to get our shit organised, Damo, and get some content out there for these fine young people that are turning up each and every week. Thank you very much for your support. Remember, if you haven't followed us, to do so. And at the Valve Bounce, of course, here, there, and everywhere you can find us. And if some of you may or may not know, I am on TikTok. It's Hey Scoops. So if you want to see more content from us, jump on that. And
Wow. If anyone's on that,
yeah.
because I'm not. But we'll keep pumping out the Instagram and the Facebook for the oldies like me. And
old.
the wrong way. Thanks, Booba. You can't even point the right way.
It's reversed on here.
Yeah, we're on the other socials, so keep a lookout. And obviously here on YouTube, we'll be doing more content as we get into it. Thanks, everyone. We will see you
in the next one. See ya.
Later.